Good morning, I'm Danny Laurel. It is Tuesday, the 24th of February, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. The first day of the confirmation of charges hearing against former President Rodrigo Duterte has concluded at The Hague, with prosecutors and defense lawyers squarely facing off before the pre-trial chamber. While both sides presented their initial arguments inside the court, the tension spilled outside as rival camps of pro-Duterte loyalists and families of the drug war victims gathered to make their voices heard. The impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte are now officially underway. That's after the House referred 4 separate complaints to the Committee on Justice on Monday. And President Bongbong Marcos has ordered the direct release of the 58 billion peso local government support fund to eliminate bureaucratic red tape. The launch of the newest national support program in Malacanang saw a rare gathering of former political rivals, including Naga City Mayor Leni Robredo and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, Day 1 of the confirmation of charges hearing against former President Rodrigo Duterte at the International Criminal Court has concluded, with both sides laying out their arguments before the pre-trial chamber. Here's the report.
At the opening of the confirmation hearing, pre-trial Chamber 1 presiding judge Ulia Antoanela Motok explained that under the court's rules of procedure, it was permissible for former President Rodrigo Duterte to be absent from the hearing. The charges against Duterte were formally read in court, including 2 counts of murder and 1 count of murder and attempted murder, allegedly committed from his time as mayor of Davao City up to his presidency. The prosecution, lawyers representing the victims, and Duterte's defense team were each given 30 minutes to present their statements. In their opening statement, the prosecution stressed that Duterte bears responsibility for the allegations.
The commencement of the confirmation hearing against Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte is a reminder of the court's unwavering commitment to its mission to investigate and prosecute individuals for the most serious crimes. It is also a reminder that those in power are not above the law.
Next to speak were the common legal representatives of the victims, or the lawyers representing the victims' families. Human rights lawyer Joel Butuyan expressed deep disappointment from the victims' families over Duterte's absence at the hearing. He said that although Duterte has been detained for a year, the families of the victims still have not found peace.
The virus of impunity that he spread all over the country has become a cancer that has metastasized, infecting millions of Filipinos. Mr. Duterte has created clones of himself. He converted millions of peace-loving citizens into bloodthirsty disciples who have become converts to the belief that violence and killings are valid solutions to societal problems.
Duterte's lawyer, attorney Nicholas Kaufman, meanwhile, argued that the court's decision should be based on evidence and not politics. He said Duterte's leadership style and use of strong language reflected openness and sincerity. Kaufman also made remarks comparing Duterte to current Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
Rodrigo Duterte was and will always remain a unique phenomenon. His style of statesmanship was novel. His expletives, he spoke openly, from the heart, sincerely and truthfully. And what a contrast between him and his successor in the Malacanang. For President Rudy, his word was his word, and the people knew it. For President Bongbong, his word is for the wind.
Kaufman appealed to the ICC to dismiss the allegations against Duterte.
We will ask you to send Rodrigo Duterte back to his family, and we will ask you to give back to the Filipino people their tatay digong.
Kaufman also revealed that the defense had obtained documents from the prosecution, which he claimed show that the Philippine government actively cooperated in bringing former President Duterte to The Hague. Among the documents cited was an alleged transcript of a phone conversation involving 4 parties, with one individual reportedly claiming to be acting as a silent partner of the president in the operation.
Supporters of former President Rodrigo Duterte and families of Jaguar victims gathered outside the International Criminal Court in The Hague on the first day of the confirmation of charges hearing against him. Here is that report.
Supporters of former President Rodrigo Duterte gathered outside the International Criminal Court in The Hague as the pre-trial chamber began the confirmation of charges hearings against him. Some traveled from other areas, and more are expected to join in the coming days. They hope the ICC will dismiss the charges against Duterte.
So far, masaya at the same time malungkot, pero masaya ako dahil they will know, mapapatuyan na nila na si President natin, former President Duterte is his involvement sa mga pinagbabato sa kanya is part of his program in the government.
Hopeful po kayo na mapapawala sa ala po?
Honestly, I'm not so sure because maraming, but never know. We love Tatay Digong. We love his legacy.
One supporter responded to being called a Duterte clone and a fanatic by a lawyer representing victims of the Philippine drug war.
I don't want the word fanatics. Hindi kami sunod-sunod lang na walang prinsipyo. So, they called us clones. Gumagawa daw si President Duterte ng mga clones. I don't want the terms used there.
Meanwhile, relatives of drug war victims closely monitor the opening day of the hearing, calling for Duterte to be held accountable for deaths linked to the anti-drug campaign. Human rights lawyer attorney Nery Colmenares expressed satisfaction with the prosecution's opening statement and described the evidence against Duterte as strong. His assessment was echoed by the mother of 2 alleged victims of extrajudicial killings.
Nung nagsalita yung prosecution, naging masaya dahil maliwanag naman maayos naman yung nailatag. Pati yung lawyer, si Attorney Butulan, okay naman yung kanyang pagsalansan ng mga defense, no? Pero pagdating kay Kaufman, mukhang out of the topic. Maybe, yun lang talaga yung maidi-defense niya dahil siguro wala na siyang ibang maging argumento. Pinagtatanggol niya si Duterte na sinasabi niyang wala namang patayan, wala namang pagpatay sa nangyari. Yung ganon. Parang yun sa amin siyempre isang masakit na maririnig yung ganon na kahit alam naman siguro niya, ganon pa rin yung sinasabi.
And back here at home in the Philippines, families of drug war victims gathered to watch the first day of former President Rodrigo Duterte's confirmation of charges hearing. Holding placards and photos of their loved ones, they called for accountability over deaths linked to the drug war. Relatives said the ICC proceedings renewed their hope for justice years after these killings. Some, however, expressed disappointment that Duterte did not attend the hearing.
Kahit papano, may kunting pagsilip ng hostisya. Dahil kung dito lang tayo aasa sa Pilipinas, wala po tayo talagang maaasahan. Dahil wala silang kooperasyon sa mga biktima. Kaya ang saya namin, may pagbukas ng hostisya sa ICC. Strategy lang nila yun. Ayaw lang nila siguro umupo dahil ayaw siguro niya makita sa madla na matanda na siya. Kaya siguro ayaw niya nang humarap. Parang baka napahiya na siya. At saka, ang naman namin, hiling namin sa kanya, magpalakas siya. Dahil marami pang haharapin ang kaso niya. Mahaba pa ang panahon para harapin niya.
On day 2, the ICC pre-trial chamber is expected to continue hearing detailed arguments from the prosecution, the defense, and the legal representatives of participating victims. Judges will assess whether there are, quote, substantial grounds to believe Duterte committed crimes against humanity linked to his anti-drug campaign, a threshold required for the case to move to full trial. No witnesses will be called at this stage, but the 3-judge panel may pose questions to clarify legal and factual issues raised on day 1. Hearings remain capped at 3 hours, divided into 3 one-hour sessions. No ruling will be issued yet, as judges have up to 60 days after proceedings conclude to decide whether to confirm, amend, or dismiss the charges. And don't go away, we will be back with more stories after this quick break. Good morning, I'm Danny Laurel, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. Four impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte have been formally transmitted to the House Committee on Justice. This comes after the cases were included in the Chamber's order of business during Monday's plenary session. The referral triggers the one-year bar rule, meaning no new impeachment complaint may be filed against the Vice President within the year. The Justice panel will now determine whether the complaints are sufficient in form and in substance. If deemed sufficient, House lawmakers will then proceed to hearings to establish probable cause for impeachment. Under House rules, the committee has up to 60 session days to submit its findings and recommendations to the plenary. And joining us now is Bicol Saro Party List Representative Terry Ridon. He's a member of the House Committee on Justice. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, Rep. Sir, we are now at the stage where the House Committee on Justice is looking at it. Where exactly are we now in the process? As I understand, there are 2 to 3 days with you. And then is there a possibility to fast track this process, or do you expect this to take the entire 60 days for all the proceedings to be continued?
After the referral to the House Committee on Justice, there will be full proceedings. No? So there will be a determination of sufficiency in form and sufficiency in substance. I think the schedule for this will be next week. No? And after the determination of sufficiency in form and substance, the respondent will be asked to answer all of the allegations, and then there will probably be a rejoinder and other replies, no, from all the parties concerned, after which there can be hearings relating to the complaints. No? But syempre, these are subject to votes, no, of the committee members. So there will be a voting on sufficiency in form and sufficiency in substance by next week.
Okay, sir, when you say the vote, how much is the threshold of the voting regarding specifically the sufficiency in form or sufficiency in substance? How much is needed?
Well, for committee proceedings, it's just the majority of all members, no? So that will be the voting rule, which we will be implementing at the House Committee on Justice level.
Okay, you mentioned, sir, after next week, if I'm not mistaken, there will be the hearings. That's after you've deemed the sufficiency in form and sufficiency in justice. What happens if it is deemed insufficient in form? What is the next step? Can they still revise this?
The complaint will be dismissed, no? But of course, there will be a reporting at the level of plenary. But if it is overridden at the level of the plenary, articles of impeachment will be made, and then there will be a transmittal to the Senate. No? Pero I don't think that is something that will happen in the next couple of weeks. No? I think we will be undertaking full proceedings, determination of sufficiency in form, and then determination of sufficiency in substance.
Okay, sir, are these hearings going to be made public? And if so, how? Will they be live streamed, or is every part of the hearing going to be made public?
Well, the proceedings will be similar to how we had done it in the previous impeachment case against President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. So it will be live streamed, it will be public, and I think the complainants will be invited to attend, but I think it will be just the endorsers who will present their case before the House Committee on Justice.
Okay. Sir, there are 4 cases filed against the current VP. Tell us, are these cases going to be taken all together when it comes to the form and substance? Are they separate cases that are going to be tackled separately?
My understanding is that the complaints will be discussed and voted upon in sequence. No? So we will discuss the first, second, third, and fourth complaint in sequence, and then the votes will be made, depending on which complaint is being discussed. No? So I think the consolidation of the cases may be voted on after a determination of sufficiency in substance had been made. No? So we will tackle and we will allow the complainants of each and every impeachment complaint to lay their case in form and in substance before the committee.
Can you confirm, Rep, that it only needs one case to hold for the impeachment trial to proceed?
Of course, I think at the minimum, only one ground is
Only
sufficient
one.
for impeachment proceedings to continue. But I'm quite certain that each and every ground will be considered, more particularly those that already been discussed in the previous impeachment proceedings. So that will include discussions relating to the use of confidential funds, discussions relating to the death threats against the president, the first lady, and the former House Speaker, discussions relating to the SALN of the vice president. But of course, there is a new ground relating to the affidavit of Ramil Madriaga. So that is something that we would also be looking in, which is basically the new ground, and the new information that is being submitted to the impeachment proceeding of what we have this year.
Can you clarify that, sir? Can you elaborate on that? What grounds would that be?
Well, yung pong Ramil Madriaga case, I think Mr. Madriaga has allegations that he had served as a bagman for the vice president. No? But I think we will allow him during full proceedings to actually explain it further as to the nature of his work and whether or not there is actual truth, no, to these particular allegations.
Did you receive, as I understand, there's 4, and then the clock starts ticking for the 1-year bar, no? So completely no chance anymore for any future filings for impeachment at this point.
So the 1-year bar had started yesterday, because yesterday was the reckoning date for the 1-year bar to start, no? So there will be no more new impeachment proceedings against the vice president for an entirety of a year. And secondly, the express route, which is the 1/3 endorsement of all House members, is already cannot be undertaken anymore, because there's already been a referral to the House Committee on Justice.
Sir, can you compare this situation with President BBM, the ones filed against him, which were recently dismissed? And what's the difference between this and now? Do you see a stronger or more compelling case for this to proceed?
Well, I think it's difficult to make an apple-to-apple comparison with the president's impeachment, but I think the commitment of the House Committee on Justice is that we will proceed in the same manner as we had done before. So the complaints will be discussed exhaustively in each and every stage, no? At the stage of sufficiency in form, at the stage of sufficiency in substance, and if there is a vote to further proceed, at the full hearings, at full deliberations, we will allow the Vice President to lay her defense during that particular stage of the proceedings.
Is there going to be any change in this entire proceedings following the official announcement of the Vice President to run for the highest office?
I think the House Committee on Justice is going to proceed, irrespective of whatever announcement that had been made by any party, whether the Vice President, whether by the side of the endorsers. No? I think it will always be based on three things. No? First, facts, evidence, and of course the conscience of the members of the committee. No? So we will look at it. We will look at the evidence. We will look at the facts, irrespective of whatever announcement that had been made by the Vice President.
But sir, the concern of the people, no, is that, I mean, 60 days from next week, that's already, and I think 60 session days, tama ba? So not even 60 calendar days. So that's going to be months from now. And then the whole trial, by the time this happens, her tenure as Vice President might already be almost finished, no? Does that mean that she could be impeached, but then she could again run for office as president, or will there be any implications after the impeachment on her ability to run?
Well, her ability to run or inability to run will be contingent on whether or not she is convicted at trial by the Senate. No, I think that is a bit premature to discuss at this point. But I think the House Committee on Justice will be able to dispose of the proceedings within the mandated 60 session days. I think we will probably be done in around 3 to 4 months, no? And we won't be able to exhaust the entirety of 60 session days, no?
Okay, and this does not impact the ability for her to file for candidacy, just to be clear. She can still always.
No, I don't. I think the elections is still like
2 years.
2.5 years from today, you know. So I'm quite certain that any and all impeachment proceedings will have been terminated at that point by around October 2027, which is basically the filing for the 2028 elections.
Okay. Sir, the Vice President has not really responded to these impeachment filings, no? And she has largely stayed outside of the limelight when it comes to this. She has not made much statements regarding this. What are you expecting now that it's already at your level? Do you need her to be more present or to respond to this? What is our expectation here?
Well, like what we had previously stated, the Vice President has each and every right to respond, but she has also every right not to respond or cooperate with the impeachment proceedings. No? But of course, we will be expecting her lawyers to actually be able to represent her before the proceedings at the House Committee on Justice, and in the event that it goes to trial, that she is actually represented at the Senate proceedings as well. No? But we will leave it to the Vice President to make that determination. But of course, it is the commitment of the House Committee on Justice that we will be fair in each and every stage of the proceedings.
Rep, can you clarify that? Why does she have the right to not participate at this level?
Well, I think that's the right of each and every defendant. Whether they would want to cooperate or they would want to provide information or not to provide information or their defenses. I think it is within the right of each and every respondent to, for example, not incriminate themselves, no? If that is something that they would want to do. So we will respect all of these types of rights that are afforded respondents in these proceedings.
A major question is, given the political implications at stake, where she has indeed, some analysts, political analysts have touted that this announcement for presidency was done in a timely manner exactly during these impeachment proceedings, no? And of course, her father, former President Rodrigo Duterte, is now also at the ICC in The Hague. There's a lot at stake for those to be voting at the House level, but also at the Senate level later on. Is there going to be some level of political alliances? How can we ensure that we avoid partisanship in the proceedings?
Again, our expectation during the proceedings is that it will only be based on three things, no? On the facts, or the evidence presented, and obviously on the conscience of each and every member of the committee. But again, impeachment proceedings are legal, constitutional, and also political. So ultimately, we will leave it to the individual House member to make that particular determination on whether or not they will consider 2028 matters, no, as part of their decision-making process.
Okay, but are there any safeguards regarding this, especially since we are quite clear about the political alliances when it comes to voting?
Well, again, ultimately, it is the determination of each and every House member as to the manner and the basis on which they will be voting. No? But again, for as long as the facts had been laid out, for as long as the actual authentic evidence had in fact been laid out, it will be only dependent on the conscience of the voting House member as to what their position or what their vote will be in each and every stage of the proceeding.
Sir, before we let you go, can you just clarify the impeachable offenses at the level of the office of the Vice President? Are these the same impeachable offenses at the level of the President? Specifically, culpable violation of the Constitution, betrayal of public trust. How strong needs to be the evidence for this to really set the stage for an impeachment?
Well, again, all of these had been raised already in the past, no? In the previous impeachment proceedings. So betrayal of public trust, culpable violation of the Constitution, and other impeachable offenses. No? So I think it is really a matter of restating all of these grounds and all of the evidence relating to these grounds. And of course, it's also a matter of the new information relating to Ramil Madriaga to be presented for the first time, no, before these proceedings. No? So we will wait in each and every stage of the proceedings as to how these will be presented, whether at the level of sufficiency in form and substance, or whether at the level of full impeachment proceedings after all of these determinations had been done.
All right. Well, we will wait for that update by next week, hopefully, and then watch that very closely. Thank you so much for your time and insights, Bicol Saro Party-less Representative Terry Redon.
Good morning. Thank you.
Meanwhile, several mayors and governors attended the launch of the Sa Bagong Pilipinas Bawat Bayan Makikinabang program at the Heroes Hall in Malacanang on Monday. Around 200 local chief executives were present, that's including Naga City Mayor Lenny Robredo and Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto. The program aims to strengthen support for local government units and speed up the delivery of assistance for food, health, care, education, and livelihood programs. Malacanang said the government will allocate 57.8 billion pesos for the Local Government Support Fund or the LGSF.
Sa usaping pagkain mula sa LGSF, mamamahagi tayo na 60 kilong bigas sa higit 5 milyong pamilyang Pilipino. Makakatanggap ang bawat pamilya ng 10 kilong bigas sa loob ng 6 na buwan kada taon. Mas magiging maayos ang nutrition ng ating mga kabataan at kahit papano'y gagaan ang gastusin sa araw-araw.
Ganda dito, talagang nakalaan na yung pondo per LGU, ano? Hindi ka na magmamakawa, hindi ka na makikiusap, hindi nakalaan na talaga yung pondo. Tapos ini-empower yung LGU para kung ano yung kailangan ng LGU, hindi yung may iba pang magsasabi sa amin na ito yung gawin ninyo.
Stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. As we know, families of drug war victims gathered yesterday to watch the first day of former President Rodrigo Duterte's confirmation of charges hearing. The proceedings renewed their hope for justice as they called for accountability over the deaths linked to the drug war. Some, however, expressed disappointment that Duterte did not attend the hearing. The confirmation of charges hearing continues today at the International Criminal Court in The Hague, Netherlands. Joining us now is Attorney Maria Sol Taule. She's the Deputy Secretary General of Karapatan, a human rights group closely monitoring the ICC proceedings against former President Duterte. Thank you so much for joining us, Attorney.
Good morning, Danny, and good morning to all your listeners and viewers. Thank you for inviting me.
What a big day yesterday. Give us your impressions, your thoughts.
Well, we've heard about the charges read to Duterte, and we heard the statements from both parties. And I was with the victims and rights advocates yesterday at UP Diliman, and we were happy that it finally pushed through after 10 years. Since we've been pushing for accountability and justice for the victims of the drug war. But of course, this is still a long way to go. But of course, the victims are willing to wait, no matter how long it takes, as long as they see Duterte to be finally convicted and spend the rest of his life in the ICC.
Attorney, can you clarify why there was such a delay? I think it was 5 months delay just for this pre-trial hearing. As a lawyer yourself, I'm sure you've been watching this, and like as you mentioned, the families have been closely waiting for this day that finally happened. What caused that?
Yes, if you remember, Danny, there's a lot of motions filed by the Duterte camp from declaring him unfit for trial, and so many other dilatory tactics just to delay the proceedings. But finally, and even the waiver of appearance of Duterte yesterday, but finally the ICC said that even without Duterte appearing yesterday and even in the succeeding days, they will push through with the confirmation of charges. So we're here, finally here, after all those postponements.
Let's talk about the opening statements that were given yesterday. No? How strong do you think the prosecution was versus, of course, the defense?
I think the prosecution did a very good job yesterday during the opening statements because they laid down the basis for the ICC to consider and to confirm the charges against Duterte. I mean, it's all over, well, it's well documented, it's covered by the media, all the statements by Duterte, his policy of kill, kill, kill in the name of the drug war. It was presented, it was flashed through the screen. So I guess the prosecution was able to clearly lay down that this is a state policy, that Duterte is most responsible for this policy of drug war killings. So we were hoping that finally the ICC will confirm the charges so that this case will finally proceed to trial.
As a lawyer yourself, no, for this to proceed to trial, they need to, it's at the level of the prosecution to be the one to show this evidence, and you had the defense pushing for that, saying, you know, this needs to be stronger, and they presented, I think it was an amount of speeches that the prosecution had quote-unquote cut deliberately, and there's, I suppose, new evidence that these speeches said certain things. How worrying is this for your camp that it might impact the decision of the judges for a full trial?
Well, Danny, to me, it's not even that worrying because, I mean, the statements of Duterte, even in his press conferences, are very clear. Sabi ko nga, probably mahihirapan po ang depensa to controvert all of this evidence that will be presented during trial because Duterte made it clear. Duterte afforded immunity sa police officers to be held accountable, to kill people, to plant evidence, and all of that. So, I guess hindi na po ubra dito yung sinasabi ni Kaufman, that old narrative that the statements of Duterte were misquoted, that the prosecution cherry-picked the statements. But when you take the evidence altogether, points to him as directly responsible for the drug war killings, that he ordered it. That's a very systematic process by his administration to go after his conceived drug addicts or drug pushers that resulted to the thousands of killings of poor Filipinos. So I guess it's not worrying at all because, again, the evidence is there, out there. You can easily Google it, you can easily search it on YouTube, and when you take it all together, you can establish that this is clearly a pattern, this is a system that is put up by Duterte.
But just to clarify, for our viewers here, there's no presentation of evidence at this point, right? So it's
Not
just
yet,
a confirmation.
not yet, Danny.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And so the concern of the people is not at this point is not whether he is guilty for these crimes or not. It's really whether they will even be able to present the evidence. What are the risks at this point, attorney, that this evidence might not even be presented or might not even be seen because the case might not go to trial?
Yeah. Right now, Danny, it's really up to the judges of the pre-trial chamber to decide whether this will push through trial. No, they have 60 days from the last day of the confirmation of charges to decide if this will finally go to trial. So we will wait for it. But right now, what the party said in the opening statements will stand as it is. And what we can do now as a member of the civil society is to wait for the period of time given to the ICC to decide on the sufficiency of evidence for the trial to pursue.
I'm sure you've been following also previous situations at the ICC. Have there really been instances where they have dismissed or not gone to trial, or the fact that you're already held at the ICC, the fact that you've been arrested at such a public level, is this not naman a guarantee but a sort of implication that this will go to a full-fledged trial?
Yeah, sa advisory, according to the advisory released by the ICC, there are scenarios given by the ICC. One is to proceed to trial, and one is to not proceed to trial. So they can, the victims can still adduce evidence, and there's a possibility that Duterte can be released. So andyan po lahat ng mga possibilities. But right now, as it stands, as I've said, I think there's a sufficient evidence for Duterte to be held, to go to trial, because yun na nga yung sinabi natin sa opening statements of the prosecution. I think they were able to establish all the grounds for Duterte to go to trial. So yun po yung ina-expect natin ng mga scenarios for today.
There's another scenario which is amend. What would that mean? And how could that push the timeline?
Yeah, if there is no sufficient evidence as of this moment, kung mag-decide po during the 60-day period, then the prosecution can still file for additional evidence, and so that means amendment. So yun po yung pwede nating maging remedy just in case na hindi po ma-confirm yung charges.
What more can be presented in the rest of the week that we hadn't seen in the first day, which was already 3 hours live stream, more than 5 hours, but You have 3 more days to convince the judges for this to push through. What are we hoping for, or what are you hoping for? What are you hoping to see to make them convinced?
Yeah, actually, Danny, for today and 26th and the 27th is the continuation, but it can be shortened. Depende po doon sa takbo. The prosecution and the defense will have a submission on the merits, and then after that, may closing statements po sila. So, depends kung matatapos yung up to the 27th or it can be shortened. But we will follow it po. As of now, we are still monitoring yung takbo po ng proceedings from today up to the 27th.
Okay.
So it's more or less talkish pa rin yan, laying down of evidence na meron po yung both parties and statements.
Okay, so they can say the evidence that they have without presenting it, tama ba?
Yes. I mean, they did it yesterday. They already flashed videos. So
Yes,
I guess ganun pa rin yung takbo.
Oo nga. Can you nuance that a little bit? Bakit pwede yun, pero no showing of evidence? Does that not sway the judge's decision?
It's part of the opening statements.
Pwede.
They will have a time to present witnesses, testimonial witnesses at the trial. Pero sa trial pa yon. So, but now, they're still laying down the context and everything, and they are allowed to use presentations.
Okay. We have 3 counts of crimes against humanity, 49 incidents, at least 76 murders, no? You have been talking to the victims' families. Is this exhaustive enough for them? The numbers are much larger, obviously, from multiple reports. Have you spoken to the people? Are they satisfied with how this is going? Does this give them a better sense of justice? Or meron pa bang pagkukulang na nafe-feel ng mga tao?
Well, for the victims, as I've talked to them yesterday, at least meron silang sense of hope as of this moment. Because it's been 10 years, Danny, since the drug war was implemented by Duterte. And finally, this is history that we're talking about na nangyari kahapon, that finally, the highest official of the land is being charged with crimes against humanity in the ICC. And hindi po nangyari yan ever. So talagang with the help of rights advocates, syempre yung pong courage ng victims, dahil hindi naman po ito mangyayari kung hindi dahil sa kanila. Nangyari po yung very historic moment yesterday. So sabi nga nila, they're willing to wait no matter how long it takes, as long as they get the justice for their loved ones. Medyo mabagal, marami pong dilatory tactics na ine-employ yung Duterte camp, but this will not affect the resolve of the families to fight for justice until the end, hanggang magkaroon po to ng resolution, or mag-push to sa trial at magkaroon finally ng resolution convicting Duterte. They will wait for it. Dahil umabot na po sila, in their words, nga sabi nila, umabot na sila dito, ngayon pa ba sila susuko. So, siguro, and we hope, Danny, in the coming months, more victims will have the courage to surface. Marami po sa kanila yung takot because Dutertes are still in power. In fact, Sara Duterte is vying for presidency.
Correct. Yeah.
So, it's very hard for them to come out in the open and tell their stories and join itong pong pinaglalaban na hustisya po para sa lahat ng victims. So, hopefully, sa takbo po ng trial, we will be getting more victims. At any point of the trial naman po, pwede pong magdagdag ng mga victims po to join the proceedings.
Can you clarify that, no? So at any point in time, pwede pa magdagdag ng evidence?
Yes po, yung mga witnesses, yung mga victims po na gustong maghain po sa ICC can after this confirmation of charges, meron po silang puwang to join.
Okay, throughout the entire proceeding. You mentioned, attorney, you've been talking to the victims and they have a concern regarding the Dutertes remaining in power. Can you clarify what you mean by that? Of course, as you mentioned, the official announcement of the Vice President came quite timely, no? How would this impact, do you think, this case? How would this impact the situation of the victims' need for hope or justice?
Yes, actually, Tani, ang concern nila yung pagbumalik ang mga Duterte in power, balikan sila eh, 'di ba? So which is a very valid concern. Hindi lang naman Vice President, I mean sa Davao, the Dutertes are still reigning in power. So yan po yung takot nila. And even nga na Vice President pa lang si Sara Duterte, grabe po ang backlash na tinatanggap po ng mga victims online and offline. That they're being called bayaran, that they are being called na yung mga kamag-anak naman nila, drug addict, and that they deserve to be killed. So ganun pong klaseng mga statements po, pinapakawalan ng Duterte camp, pati mga trolls nila. So what more kung makahawak ulit sa kapangyarihan po yung mga Duterte sa pinakamataas na kapangyarihan in fact. So they worry a lot about Sara Duterte being vindictive, pero dinanay na po niya sa interviews na sabi niya, she's not vindictive. But then again, wala naman tayong pinapaniwalaan sa sinasabi ng mga Duterte. So everything really is possible, and our concern is the safety of the victims.
Are you confident that since this is at ICC level, that no amount of power that the president has locally could impact the trial of her father?
Yes, we are confident on that. This is not the Philippine justice system we're talking about. So, we believe that ICC cannot be swayed by any kind of influence from the Philippines.
What message does that send about the Philippines justice system, attorney?
Yeah, yun na nga eh. Hindi po tayo nakapag-prosecute dito, and that was mentioned by Attorney Joel Butuyan yesterday. He quoted Justice Secretary na, the evidence is gone. We cannot prosecute. So what do we expect? That's why we're here at the ICC now. Umabot po tayo sa ganitong punto ngayon ng kasaysayan ng Pilipinas, that at the level of impunity in the Philippines, umabot po tayo sa sasakdal ng dating presidente ng Pilipinas sa ICC. So it's very sad that it happened sa Pilipinas, and it's still happening. Hindi pa naman po nawawala ang drug war. There's still drug war in the Philippines. But hopefully, this will bring about meaningful changes, lalo na po sa mga relatives ng victims for justice, and yung pong restitution, yung mga nawala po sa kanila because of what happened to them.
Finally, attorney, before we let you go, there's now some resolutions filed in the House by the opposition to join the ICC. At this point, what would that even do?
Our calling for the Philippines to rejoin the ICC.
Yes, correct.
Kasi again, that's parang check and balance yan eh. Yan na nga yung dahilan why Duterte is in the ICC now, and at least there's some sort of accountability that the victims can access, just in case, and hopefully hindi na ulit mangyari dito sa Pilipinas. So we really demand noon pa kay President Marcos Jr. to rejoin the ICC.
Have you heard, what's your expectation on that, especially since, of course, Duterte is already in the ICC? Are you expecting this to happen? Are you hoping for this to happen right away?
We
How
are
long do you
hoping
think?
for this to happen because it's very important. This is the last resort of the Filipinos who cannot find justice in their very own country. So we hope that Marcos Jr. will do it. But again, sabi ko nga, with this administration, no high hopes masyado, pero we will keep pushing for it.
Of course, we need accountability here in our own country, and not to always deploy people to the ICC. Thank you very much. We'll be watching that very closely. And thank you so much for all your efforts, Attorney Maria Sol Taule, Deputy Secretary General of Karapatan. Meanwhile, Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro said that former President Rodrigo Duterte's lead defense counsel, Attorney Nicholas Kaufman, is becoming a source of fake news. Castro stressed that Kaufman failed to present a clear defense regarding allegations of extrajudicial killings during yesterday's confirmation of charges hearing. She also denied claims that President Bongbong Marcos is trying to neutralize the legacy of the former president, calling the allegation baseless. Castro pointed out that cases of crimes against humanity were filed against Duterte at the International Criminal Court in 2017. That's when Marcos was still a private citizen. Here is the portion of that interview.
Ano po ba ang reaksyon ng palasyo doon sa naging opening statements, lalo na po ng defense kanina?
Hindi naman katakataka, Pauline. Ever since naman yan ang isinisigaw ng kampo ni dating Pangulong Duterte at mukhang ina-adapt lang ng abogado niyang si Atty. Kaufman. Lumalabas kasi dito, Pauline, na walang kaalam-alam itong si Atty. Kaufman ng katotohanan. Dahil sabi nga natin, mukhang siya yung may lumalabas na siya yung may severe cognitive impairment as kumpara sa kanyang kliyente. Kung ano man ang depensa niya, we don't care. Ang sa atin lang dito, wag niya lang dadamay ang Pangulo dahil puro yung kasinungalingan. Kung anong depensa niya sa atin ngayon, wala tayong nakikitang matatag, matibay na ebidensya para mapakita niyang walang kasalanan ang dating Pangulong Duterte. But still, sabi nga natin, ang Pangulo ay hindi makikialam dyan. Huwag lang idadamay ang pangalan niya. At ang administrasyon na ito.
And don't go away. More matters to discuss after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Now, amid recent exchanges between Philippine and Chinese officials, Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chair Erwin Tulfo met with the officials of the Chinese embassy. Tulfo described the meeting as productive and was attended by Chinese Ambassador to the Philippines Wang Xilian and other embassy officials. Both sides agreed to continue diplomatic engagements privately instead of exchanging statements through media or social platforms to help improve bilateral relations. Now, among the issues discussed were the proposed code of conduct as well as the possible renewal of cooperation between the Philippines and Chinese Coast Guards. Tulfo said China appears open to signing the code of conduct, which both sides hope to finalize by December. He also clarified to Chinese officials that Philippine authorities operate under a democratic system with freedom of speech.
Alam naman nila, and sinabi ko naman na si Tariel is under sa executive, kami is sa legislative, so iba yung system of government natin dito. May executive branch, may legislative branch of government. Tapos I was telling them na meron tayong freedom of speech dito. It's under democratic process. So sabi ko, kahit mga leaders natin dito, sinusunog yung mga effigies, sana yung mga tao.
And from revival to a full-scale return, one of the country's most historic cycling events is gearing up for an even bigger ride this year. Mobile Journal Denise Baldesancho reports.
The wheels are turning once again for one of the country's most historic sporting events. The Tour of Luzon 2026 was officially launched yesterday at the Meralco Lighthouse, alongside an advanced screening of the Tour of Luzon 2025 docufilm.
This year, the legacy lives. And in the 11 months since the Great Revival, it has accelerated into an unstoppable momentum.
The 2026 edition will cover more than 1,800 kilometers across 5 regions, 13 provinces, and over 60 local government units. 20 teams will compete for more than 12 million pesos in prize money, with the race starting in Calatagan and ending with a tough mountain finish in Baguio. Backing the event is the MVP Group, which continues to push for world-class standards and even bigger dreams for Filipino cycling.
Last year, we were able to revive the Tour of Luzon. We all know what it took to undertake a world-class event such as the Tour of Luzon. Our goal is to have 1 or 2 Filipino riders to join the Tour de France.
As support for the tour continues to grow, officials see it as a major opportunity to showcase the Philippines to the world as a rising hub for sports tourism.
You know, last year, from 0 to 100 million views, now I'm expecting baka 200 million ang SOCMED views natin.
Set from April 29 to May 13, the Tour of Luzon 2026 is set to roll. Kapatid Denise Baldesancho, we are One News.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we have given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Danny Laurel, kapatid. We are One News, all sides, all the time.